One thing I do use quite a bit on the Pfaff sewing machines is the option to adjust needle position. So with this machine having a full 9 millimeters width of stitching, that means you have a lot more options for needle positions. So let's start with a straight stitch. On a straight stitch, you'll notice a little symbol here where normally you adjust stitch width. Well, obviously on a straight stitch, we don't adjust stitch width, we adjust needle position. So as you hold it, you notice the small increments to each side. So if I push the plus, it takes me 4.5 millimeters to the right, and then if I go back to center, which a quick way to get back to the center would be to retouch stitch number 1. That kind of clears out any settings. Plus, if I go to the minus side, now I'm going over to the left side. So lots of different options. But let me show you something really neat. I'm going to just clear that out so we see it's back to normal. Usually use needle position changes for when you're top stitching, you're using your zipper foot. But on this machine, you can take a decorative stitch, and I'll just use the little satin stitch zigzag. Now this zigzag is not the full width of the 9 millimeters. It's kind of a defaulted setting of 6. Now if you touch the little symbol in the middle here, this area goes from stitch width options to needle position options. So what you're able to do is actually shift the stitch to the right or to the left of the default center of the stitch. Now why would you want to do that? There's times where I want to right justify the stitch. For example, if I was in some of the decorative stitches with the scallops. Now when you pick a scallop, it will come up at the full 9 millimeter, which means you don't have needle position options. But if we had that narrowed down and I wanted to be able to bring the little tip of these scallops a little closer to, say, the inside edge of my foot, we could touch that feature and adjust it so it moves all the way to the left. And then that way I can have more control of where I guide it. And that's not available on most machines, but I do like it. But it is hiding. It's hiding right underneath your stitch width feature for these stitches. Now remember, if it's full 9 millimeters, you don't have any wiggle room, so that would be for anything much narrower in the stitch width setting. So for example, stitch number 12, I think that, yep, that also comes up 6 millimeters wide, and then I could take that and move it to the left or to the right. Remember one more thing on this, you will always notice a little green plus at the top of your stitch. That does indicate where your needle is going to start. So right now I see my needle way over here on the right side because that is where the stitch starts. That's going to help you line up your stitch even easier every time you start to sew.